The smell hit me before I even opened my parents' front door. Fresh salmon, herbs, maybe some dill. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, too busy juggling my job at the veterinary clinic and picking up my 7-year-old daughter Lily from school. But we were here for Sunday dinner, a tradition I kept hoping would somehow heal our fractured family. "Grandma's cooking something fancy," Lily said, her eyes bright with anticipation. She clutched her favorite stuffed dinosaur, the one with the missing eye that she refused to let me fix. I should have known better. I should have turned around right then. "We're in here," Mom called from the kitchen. The house looked different: new furniture, fresh paint, expensive-looking curtains. All changes made in the last few months since my younger sister Scarlett had moved back home with her 3 Persian cats after her divorce. We found them in the kitchen, Mom and Scarlett huddled over the stove like they were performing surgery. 3 crystal dishes sat on the counter, each containing perfectly grilled salmon with garnish that looked like it belonged in a restaurant. "Is that for dinner?" Lily asked hopefully, tugging on my hand. "It smells amazing." Mom barely glanced at us. "Oh, these are for Princess, Duchess, and Earl Grey. You know how sensitive their stomachs are. Scarlett's been having such trouble finding food they can digest properly." I watched in disbelief as my sister carefully divided the salmon, wild-caught Alaskan, according to the wrapper in the trash, into 3 portions. Each piece probably cost more than I spent on groceries for Lily and me for 3 days. "What are we having then?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. "There's leftover casserole in the fridge," Dad said from his recliner, not looking up from his phone. "Bottom shelf. Might be from Tuesday, or was it Monday? Anyway, help yourselves." I opened the refrigerator and found it. A ceramic dish covered in foil, shoved behind expired yogurt, and something green that might have once been vegetables. When I peeled back the corner of the foil, the smell of spoilage wafted out. The casserole was covered in spots of mold, the edges crusty and discolored. "Mom, this is moldy," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can't feed this to Lily." "Don't be so dramatic, Jade." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Just scrape off the bad parts. Kids eat anything. You used to eat dirt when you were her age." "There's bread in the pantry," Scarlett added without looking up from her cat food preparation. "Make her a sandwich or something." The bread was 2 weeks past its expiration date, sporting its own collection of fuzzy green spots. My hands shook as I held the bag. This wasn't about money. I'd seen the receipt for the salmon. $37 for fish. 4 cats. "I'm hungry, Mommy," Lily whispered, pressing against my leg. That's when something inside me snapped. But not in the way they expected. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply took out my phone and started recording. "Look, there's perfectly good food here," Mom said, grabbing the moldy bread from my hands. She tore off a piece, mold and all, and held it out to Lily. "See? Grandma says it's fine." Lily, trusting as always, reached for it. I pulled her back, but not before she'd taken a small bite. The rest happened in slow motion. Her face changed, eyes watering, and then she was running to the sink, vomiting violently. "Kids eat anything," Dad laughed from the living room. "She's just being picky like her mother." I kept recording as I held Lily's hair back, capturing her tears, her shaking, the dismissive looks from my family. Mom actually rolled her eyes and returned to seasoning the cat food. "Cats have sensitive stomachs," she explained to Scarlett, as if my daughter wasn't crying and sick 3 feet away. "You can't just feed them any old thing. They're delicate creatures." That night, I took Lily to urgent care. The doctor's face went stern when I explained what happened. "Food poisoning," he said. "From mold ingestion. I have to report this." "Report it?" I asked. "When a child is deliberately fed spoiled food while fresh food is available, that's neglect," he said quietly. "Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" We spent that night in a hotel, Lily curled against me, still pale and weak. I stroked her hair and made a decision. They wanted to treat us like we were worth less than animals? Fine. I'd show them what that really meant. The next morning, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Dr. Patricia Huang, my boss at the veterinary clinic and one of the most respected animal welfare advocates in the state. I'd worked for her for 5 years, and she'd become more of a mother to me than my own had ever been. "I need your help," I said, and told her everything. Her silence was heavy. Then, "Bring me the video. All of it." The second call was to my cousin Marcus, a health inspector who'd been trying to get me to report my parents' household habits for years. "I'm ready," I told him. The third call was to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my grandmother's estate lawyer. My parents didn't know that Grandma Ellen had updated her 6 months before she died. They didn't know about the conversation we'd had in her hospital room when she held my hand and said, "I see how they treat you, sweetheart. I'm going to make sure you're protected when I'm gone." They didn't know I'd inherited everything. For the next 2 weeks, I played the part of the forgiving daughter. I accepted Mom's half-hearted apology. "You always were too sensitive about food," and even brought Lily back for another Sunday dinner. This time, I brought our own food, claiming Lily was on a special diet after the incident. What they didn't see was Marcus in the parking lot, waiting for my signal, or the papers in my purse, waiting to be served, or the way I documented everything. The fresh tuna for the cats, the expired yogurt they tried to give Lily for dessert, the $200 automatic cat food dispenser Scarlett was installing while telling me she couldn't chip in for Lily's birthday gift because money's tight. Dr. Huang's viral social media campaign started on a Wednesday. She never mentioned names, but the video was damning. When people feed their pets better than their grandchildren, it began. The clip of Mom declaring cats have sensitive stomachs, while Lily vomited, went viral within hours. Animal lovers were horrified. Parents were outraged. The comment section exploded. By Thursday, Marcus had conducted his inspection. The health code violations were extensive, not for the cat food area, which was pristine, but for every space designated for human food. The distinction was so stark, he took photos for his training materials. Friday brought the cease and desist order. My parents had been using Grandma Ellen's name and recipes for their small catering business, the one they'd started with the inheritance they thought they'd received. Except Grandma's recipes and the right to use them had been left to me. But the real blow came on Saturday. Scarlett's ex-husband, a mild-mannered accountant named Jeffrey, had been following the viral video saga. He called me that evening. "Is that really how they treat Lily?" he asked. "While my alimony payments buy gourmet cat food?" Turns out, Scarlett had been claiming poverty in their divorce proceedings while living rent-free with our parents and spending hundreds on her cats. Jeffrey's lawyer was very interested in the documentation I'd gathered. The family meeting was called for Sunday. I arrived early, Lily safe at Dr. Huang's house for the afternoon. My parents were frantic. The catering business was shut down, Scarlett's alimony was being challenged, and their social media accounts were flooded with angry comments. "How could you do this to us?" Mom wailed. "We're your family." Family. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Family doesn't feed moldy bread to children. Family doesn't treat animals better than their own grandchildren. It was just food. Dad protested. "You're overreacting." That's when I pulled out the final document. "Grandma Ellen left me the house," I said quietly. "This house. You've been living here rent-free for 2 years because I didn't want to be cruel. But since you think it's acceptable to be cruel to a 7-year-old child, I'm done." The eviction notice gave them 30 days. "You can't," Scarlett shrieked. "What about my cats? They need stability." "Then I suggest you find a place that accepts pets," I said. "Though you might want to budget for your own rent this time, since Jeffrey's reviewing those alimony payments." Mom grabbed my arm. "Please, Jade. We're sorry. We'll do better." I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. For a moment, I saw the mother I'd always wanted her to be. Then I remembered Lily's tears, her small body shaking over the sink. "You fed my daughter moldy bread while cooking gourmet meals for cats," I said, pulling away. "You laughed while she was sick. You've shown me exactly how much we mean to you." As I walked to the door, Dad called out, "Where are we supposed to go?" I turned back one last time. "I don't know. But wherever it is, I hope they serve fresh food. Though you might want to check the expiration dates. I hear humans have sensitive stomachs." The house sold 2 months later. I used the money to start a fund for families dealing with food insecurity, making sure no child in our community would have to eat spoiled food while watching others eat better. Dr. Huang helps me run it, and we've already helped dozens of families. My parents ended up in a small apartment across town. Scarlett and her cats moved to a studio after Jeffrey successfully challenged the alimony agreement. The last I heard, Mom was working at a pet store, which seemed fitting somehow. As for Lily and me, we have our own Sunday dinner tradition now. We cook together, trying new recipes, laughing over silly mistakes. Sometimes Dr. Huang joins us, bringing dessert and stories from the clinic. Last week, Lily looked up from her plate, fresh pasta with homemade sauce, and said, "Mommy, remember when Grandma said kids eat anything?" "Yes, baby," I said carefully. "That's silly," she said matter-of-factly. Kids are people. We deserve good food too. I hugged her tight, this wise little girl who understood her own worth better at 7 than I had at 30. Yes, baby. You deserve the very best. Always. The cats, I heard, were rehomed to families who could afford to maintain Scarlett's gourmet feeding standards. I like to think they're happy wherever they are. After all, it wasn't their fault they were valued more than a child. But some nights, when I'm tucking Lily into bed in our new home, the one bought with Grandma Ellen's love and protected by boundaries I finally learned to set, I think about that Sunday. The smell of salmon, the taste of mold, the moment I decided we deserved better. They had no idea what I would do next. But more importantly, they had no idea what they'd lost. Not money or houses or businesses, but the love of a daughter and granddaughter who would have given them everything, if only they'd seen us as worthy of fresh bread. Now, every Sunday when we sit down to eat, Lily says grace. And every time, she ends with the same words. Thank you for this good food, and for Mommy who makes sure it's always fresh. It's a small thing, maybe. But in our house, small things matter. Children matter. Love matters. And the food? It's always, always fresh.